I'm Al Safadi, and in this episode of the Clarity Digital Pod, I sit down with Dan Albaum, a seasoned marketing executive and partner at Market Impact, to explore the evolving nature of leadership in the B2B tech and education space. With over 2 decades of marketing leadership experience across industries like global tech, fitness, and K-12 edtech, Dan offers a unique perspective on how organizations, especially smaller brands, can bridge the gap between ambition and execution. We dive into everything from when to invest in executive leadership to the rise of the fractional CMO, the shifting dynamics at the C-suite level, and what it takes for hands-on marketers to level up into true executive roles. Get into it. All right, let's go. Hi, Dan. How you doing today?
Al, I'm doing great. Nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you on. I appreciate it. I know we were trying to make this happen. We were both a little bit busy, but here we are. If you don't mind introducing yourself for our audience, that would be wonderful.
Sure, I'm Dan Albaum, and for most of my career, I've been in marketing leadership, primarily in B2B technology companies. I've worked in leading global marketing teams in different technologies. I've also spent time leading a global fitness marketing organization for one of the leaders in that space, and also in EdTech, in K-12 education. And now I'm a partner and focused on my consultancy Market Impact, where I help smaller brands really achieve that next level of sustainable success, along with really developing exceptional leadership behaviors.
That's great. There was a few words that you mentioned there that kind of like triggered a few questions for me. So I want to get to it if you don't mind. Smaller brands, they tend to shy away from like true leaderships. A lot of them are owner operated or
Yeah.
founder led, and they tend to not to invest in it too much. And at some point they plateau and they come to, let's say if you're running a marketing agency, they come to us and say, hey, we need to go to the next level. And I'm like, hey, we are running your SEO campaign, we're running your paid media campaigns. You really need a CMO. And you need to invest in a CMO or CRO or chief growth officer, whatever C-level. What are your recommendations? What are your thoughts on that? When should smaller brands start investing in executive leadership?
Yeah, you bring up a really key challenge, but it's an opportunity as well. And sometimes where you've got a smaller organization that has clear aspirations for growth, you've got the CEO wearing many different hats. And so they
Mhm.
haven't had the opportunity to build out that functional leadership yet. And so one of the things is they're stretched. They're stretched so far and they're getting sucked into, and they're really having to get into the weeds, of course, to keep the engine going for that
Yeah.
small business. And really the right time to be able to invest and bring some of that functional focus in. The point at which you have some sort of credibility and clear track record of customer proof of performance, that's
Yeah.
the time when you have the foundation for an impactful, credible story to be
Yeah.
told, when you actually have the true experience of delivering value to customers. And so whether that's a handful of customers, start building out content. I always focus and recommend focusing on building a clear and compelling story first. So content becomes really important. And if you can build that story specific to real world success and impact, that's where you can actually achieve some of the greatest gains. I've seen it where a prospect can look at a customer like them that fits a similar profile. You've got a compelling story with some measurable impact results. Investing in those success stories and just getting that content out can be some of the most impactful things that you do at that point.
Great, awesome stuff. We work with a lot of, as you also work with B2B companies.
Well,
And on the tech side, the founders tend to be very tech minded and immediate growth minded. And some of the things you mentioned, like content, are very important, but they have more of a longer term ROI, right? You got to spend a lot of time creating content, adjusting it, fine tuning it. And there's different type of content. There's video content, there's internal content, there's customer facing content, there's customer service content, and those stuff take a while. How do you prioritize that? Like, how do you tackle that? Let's say working with startups, and then we'll get to
Yeah.
large enterprises soon as well.
Yeah. Actually, Al, I would argue that the path to creating really impactful content, that path is not as long as it used to be, because there are
Sure.
some amazing tools out there that can allow us to capture, whether it be on video, whether it be in crafting the
Hmm.
narrative around that. And I would argue using augmented intelligence, the AI, to augment the human effort into creating that content. The pathway to creating that is really not that fast, nor is it necessarily that expensive.
Yeah.
It's just making the commitment to do that, to make the ask. So if you're starting to build your customer list, building in the ask for referrals, for recommendations, for testimonials, start
Yes.
making that part of the language of your sales process. I actually have found that to be maybe a little bit more of the hurdle than the actual, this is too much for us to go out and create the content. You can get there fast. You can start even with a basic collaborative video type of meeting software, be it
Like
Zoom or
this. Yeah.
some of the others like we're doing now.
Right.
That's widely available, not that big of an investment. The key is just asking the right questions, showing curiosity, and being able to tell a story that is compelling, that will resonate with an audience that you've defined, that is really key for your growth. So know who you want to talk to, who you want to connect to, and then build conversations that show you're delivering the value that address those pain points, those challenges that those customers you've defined care about.
That's good stuff. And my experience, smaller companies and startups tend to be more open to creating content and adopting technology a lot faster than some of the more established ones. We are working with one of our clients that they're e-commerce, direct to consumer e-commerce brand, and they're very particular about creating content, and they're very minimalist. And one of
Yeah.
the things that I've been trying to tell them is that, hey, look at Amazon product detail pages, see how much content it has, because they have done the homework and they know more content, as long as it's relevant to that product, is necessary not only for SEO but also for consumer decision making, consumer trust, so on and so forth, addressing people's questions and pain points and things of that nature. It all helps. And this is just on the marketing end, right? And I keep getting frustrated that they come back and, oh yeah, okay, and then they just brush it off and they don't do anything about it. So that's more of a leadership challenge that I often face myself as an outside vendor, as a fractional, as a consultant. How do you have any tips for me, basically? How do I go about that, dealing with clients that are like that, that are very minimalist, are not, and these are larger clients, $multi-hundred-million client and
Mhm.
revenue type of a year client. So how do I overcome that challenge? Do you have any tips for me?
Yeah, I think a couple things is to try to break down them into path, break it into a series of smaller steps, rather than try to push for kind of a simultaneous huge investment, big and expansive and complex marketing plans, strategies, tactics. Is try to compartmentalize, break it down into a step one, step two, get some small wins,
Yeah.
and do that iteratively to
Mm.
start building the confidence around that. So something that has worked well for me is to just typically to break down a proposal into a series of stages,
Yeah.
and just structurally do it and say, let's get to one level, one summit first, be able to assess. And by the way, in that journey, be very open about the fact that we're not going to be perfect. There are going to be some things that we learn along the way. We may fall short of some of the goals we set in terms of some of the measured results, but we're going to apply that learning. That's the key. We're going to apply the learning into improved performance over time. Break it down, make it easier to get their arms around it, and they're more likely to buy into, okay, I'll buy into the first stage, see some successes and some short-term wins, and then that gives you some momentum and leverage into stage two, stage three, et cetera, going forward. That's a big one right there.
Very good advice. Just take it step by step, right? Crawl before you walk. I have a separate topic. I manage, and I believe you're on it too, a CMO, small CMO group. And what I've noticed is that I just sense that there is a transformation happening at the C level, not only for marketing, but I've seen a lot of CMOs are getting laid off, and then a lot of
Yeah.
CMOs are getting hired. Same deal with CROs, and all these new roles are popping out. I went to a conference last year, B2B marketing exchange in Alfreda, and somebody said I'm a CRO at this company, and being a marketer, I thought he meant conversion rate optimization. What the heck is CRO? He's like, oh, Chief Revenue Officer. I'm like, okay, what is that? He's like, oh, it's like I manage sales and marketing. I'm like, so you don't have a CMO? He's like, no, technically I'm the CMO, but also manage sales. So all these new roles are popping out. Some of the older ones are like taking a back seat. I feel like the C level is redefining itself. Are you seeing that too, or is it just my view?
Yeah, for sure. I think in terms of just organization structure, we're seeing some more evidence where structurally, where marketing as a function may be reporting in parallel to sales under an overall leader, that a chief revenue officer, that's becoming a more common title. I know some former CMOs that have actually stepped up into that CRO role. So it's
Yeah,
not necessarily a thing where marketing is being marginalized by
yeah,
that if there's this new layer between CMO and CEO, because sometimes you're seeing really smart, very incredible marketers be able to move up into that CRO role. I think the positive about that is just recognition of the intrinsic synergy and cohesion that needs to be in a go-to-market process between marketing and sales. So I think there actually is some good that can come from bringing those two organizations reporting up kind of
yeah.
into a similar structure. So it's what the intent is. And in the spirit of driving more of that alignment and cohesion, that can make it a positive versus a negative from a marketing perspective.
It actually makes sense because sales and marketing should really work hand in hand. And you want sales to respect marketing efforts and leads, or vice versa. I worked with organizations where sales and marketing are very isolated, and sales is doing its own thing and marketing is doing its own thing. And I'm like, okay, someone needs to bridge the gap here. So this actually makes a lot of sense. There's also this emergence of fractional CMO, which is not anything new, but I see it more and more every day. And it feels like even marketing, even maybe at a C level, and it's not just CMOs, by the way. There's fractional CPOs or CP, no, yeah, CR, like a bunch of fractional CTOs. That's a new role that's emerging. Do you have any thoughts on that and why that's happening?
Yeah, I think it's from the standpoint of focus and priority. It's that maybe organizations that are not yet at the place where they really need to invest in a full-time, full-on strategy focused chief marketing officer, it can make sense to get fractional advisory types of value from
Sure.
that and be able to focus the where and the when that strategic input happens. If you've got one or two very competent and confident in-house marketers that are more junior that are keeping a demand generation, a go-to-market
Yeah.
engine going, that can work actually to just be more intentional and focused on where you bring in that strategic oversight, because you may have that day-to-day managerial oversight. That capability exists. No need to bring in a very senior CMO level to perform that part of it that you
Yeah.
already have. So to me, it's just being very smart and selective about how you're making that investment to get the most value from all that a CMO can really bring. And it seems to be a lot more common. And I think the other thing that is helping or creating more of that demand is the fact that there is so much CMO talent that is out and available to be able to come in and perform at a fractional level. So the supply is so good that it
Yeah.
makes it more enticing to be able to go to that kind of a model.
Yeah, totally. And I could see even a larger organization that may have, let's say, CRO would want to get a fractional CMO to help with the marketing part because the CRO is so busy and caught up with managing such a huge team that it might need someone with a certain expertise. And I've seen that too, by the way. I've seen that a lot. That's really good. Let's move on to how a person like me and many other marketers who have the same struggle, who get stuck in middle management of marketing. They're hands-on. I'm very hands-on. I come from a computer science background. Then I got into marketing, so I'm very technical, well, relatively technical compared to many other marketers. I can code, I can design things if I have to. And then I go, and then I also have to manage a team. And I feel like stuck. And there's a lot of people like me, by the way, in-house and the marketing on the agency side. What's the next step for us? How do we grow to the next level?
Yeah, I think there's never a time where having proven technical competence and functional competence doesn't matter. So that's huge, and so that is not something to be shied away from. But to me, that difference, being able to transcend in terms of having more true long-term strategic impact in an organization, is not necessarily you proving through your own personal capabilities the completion or the contribution of task. It's your ability to motivate, inspire, enable, and empower others in the organization within your functional domain or cross-functionally to achieve a bigger strategic and measurable outcome for the organization. So think of it as the influence factor of
Yeah.
really separating that. And the way that I found in terms of being able to demonstrate that and to start making that happen is to really be proactive in really raising your hand in taking on maybe some of those internal kind of messy, maybe almost cross-functional operational types of initiatives where you as a marketing leader are still taking the cross-functional team leadership of that to own that as a way to demonstrate your ability to be able to lift people, some that may not even directly report to you, to really contribute more to an organization. So put yourself in a position to prove and to show that you have those bigger skill sets of influence and supporting the growth of others in the organization. That is a definition of leadership capability.
Really good. Thank you. And there's a follow-up question. How do you learn those skills? Because if you want to learn technical skills, there are books, there's references, there are guides, but those influencing stuff, I've read the book, Laws of Power and How to Influence Others and stuff like that. But how do we apply that in our daily lives, especially in our jobs?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. Certainly, there's no shortage of real stories, best practices, and experiences. So the more that you can read, the more that you can watch, go out and listen to interviews like this podcast of exceptional marketing leaders that are sharing real examples of how they've been able to really lift teams. How do they approach leadership? My book, The Impact Makers, which lays out a real simple 6 dimensions
And
with
that's your book.
real world examples. Yeah, The Impact Makers, which features the voices of more than 80 exceptional leaders from around the world that are bringing real examples of how to build in things like developing a culture of innovation, building authentic, trusted relationships. So read, absorb, learn, listen. And then the other thing that all of us have the power to do, Al, is we can always go out and ask questions and seek feedback from the people that we're working alongside of, or that maybe we're leading on a project, and ask them the question, what could have I done better? What did I do well? Go out and show a genuine curiosity to get the feedback that will allow you to apply learning and become better and better over time as a leader.
The feedback part is everything was great. Thank you. The feedback part I really agree with, but I'm going to tell you why sometimes I don't ask feedback is sometimes I fear unfair criticism. I feel like the person may just not like me and they might just not give me the real feedback I need to hear. And because of corporate politics, again, I don't have the issue as a vendor, as an agency, but when I was in house, one of the challenges I had is there was a lot of corporate politics and going to one of my peers asking for feedback depending on who they were, sometimes I would hesitate that. And how do you recommend me and people like me to get over that fear?
Well, the way that I look at it, even in an environment where maybe politics are real, right, or optics are, it's something that's on everyone's mind, is the fact is that how you're perceived, how people view you, and what they might communicate that reality is going to exist whether you choose to to have a lens and visibility into it or
Yeah.
not. So if you're not reaching out and asking, something that I always did as part of my reviews is I would always provide to my manager a good representative list of people and encourage them to go and get what we call 360 feedback from those people. And my point, Al, is that if you're concerned, what might they say? It's not going to look good. The reality is, if you don't know about it or you don't see it or you don't get it, then you're going to have potential blind spots where you don't have that opportunity. If some of that is real and you need to work on it, and whether you choose to not hear it or to see it, the fact is that feedback is probably finding its way back in and across the organization anyway.
Sure.
So if that's happening, you might as well at least give yourself a chance to be able to get the gift of visibility to that feedback to allow you to be able to address anything that's a legitimate issue.
Great. Thanks for that. I want to share my screen to show your book that I found on Amazon. Obviously, I'm sure you probably have your own website. Just want to make sure we have the right book. Is this the right book?
One.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna look into it. All right, and let's talk about that. I'm not logged in, so I'll do this later. Let's talk about this book for a minute. I'd like to learn more about it and what you cover in this book and why would you recommend people like me to buy it?
Yeah. A philosophy that I have carried throughout my career is that really at the end of the day in business, it's all about making a positive impact every day. That is an ultimate North Star to point to. And with that as the foundation of the book, this is actually an argument. I create the case for why exceptional leadership is really built across 6 key dimensions. And I'll just go through those, Al, real quickly.
Sure.
And there's a tremendous amount of real world leadership examples and what I'd call micro storytelling that kind of go behind these as you read through the book. The first is exceptional leadership really starts with cultivating, nurturing, and maintaining a culture of innovation within your team or maybe contributing to your organization at large. Second dimension is really a focus on developing authentic, trusted relationships within your own functional team, across teams in your organization. And actually, and I talk about this idea of ecosystems in nature. The same thing exists where you think company to company, there's an opportunity to create those authentic, trusted relationships in those business ecosystems as well. The third dimension is really championing and embracing the idea of diverse teams. And this is not with a traditional narrow view where we say diversity is just about racial diversity or gender diversity, but actually embracing the idea of different life experiences, different career trajectory or status points, right? Are you early in career? You're late in career? The idea of multi-generational teams and why that is very beneficial to really embrace the idea of having truly diverse teams across all of those different kinds of dimensions to really promote the right kind of healthy debate, different perspectives that can lead to better outcomes. The fourth dimension is about leveraging data to make better decisions and the value of data-driven. And certainly in marketing, we are increasingly becoming more analytical to help improve decision making. But the key is to have clarity on what the core set of questions are that we are using the data to answer. And that seems really simple, Al, but I'm sure you can relate. And I've seen it so many teams and organizations that really don't get that clarity. And so what you get is a lot of data collection, huge volumes of data and reports, and you're almost just weighed down by too much data and overwhelmed. And so we never really get the leverage. Well, what I argue is focus, get the clarity on the front end, and that is the key to really leveraging data. The fifth dimension is around exceptional leadership behaviors. And this is where I introduce the concept of emotional intelligence and self-awareness, why it's so critical as a leader to be exceptional, to really embrace that and to focus on those things. And then a concept that has worked really for me and had tremendous impact on my leadership capability, and that is the triad of transparency, being so critical to create an atmosphere within a team that feels, on the third dimension, empowered. Empowerment, transparency, accountability. And then the sixth dimension is a little different because it's not really a behavior, it's more of a mindset. And that is the power of optimism, and why that is so valuable as a leader to bring that every day into your team. So those are the six. We lay that out. We tell real stories and perspectives from those leaders, along with my own experience as a marketing leader, into a very real, compelling reading experience that, at least the feedback so far has really made a difference.
Yes, amazing. Thank you. So since we have a few more minutes, let's talk about what's after this book. I'm definitely going to buy a book as a gift for myself for Christmas, because that's one of my goals, to become a better leader, not only for my agency, but for my personal life, right? What are some of the services you offer as an advisor? Where can people find you? And do you have a website? Where do you create content where we can follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. Great place to go for more information is our website, and that's marketimpactnow.com. You'll find more information on what Market Impact Consultancy offers across the whole spectrum of strategic marketing, as well as more information on leadership development, and a new offering this year that has now been implemented at several global organizations is Your Path to Impact. And this is a really unique leadership team cohort style experience of reading the book, The Impact Makers, engagement with an online learning platform, and facilitated team sessions to really start applying the learning that's laid out in the book across these six dimensions. So more information available there on Your Path to Impact, and welcome feedback and connections, and really taking things to the next level with the audience.
That's amazing. Appreciate it. So, do you have any questions for me before we conclude this podcast?
Just one other resource I wanted to mention
Please.
for the
Yeah, please do
audience.
that.
The book was really driven with all of these conversations, which are just a fraction of the more than 250 episodes on my podcast, which
Oh,
is
amazing.
7 years running. That podcast is Market Impact Insights. You can
Okay.
find it wherever you go for podcasts, Apple, Spotify, but you'll get one-to-one leadership conversations there. And we cover just a wide range of both marketing, but also C-suite, company founder, entrepreneurial perspectives, all things leadership on that podcast. And what I encourage you, Al, as a fractional marketing leader, you're going to bring the value of the collective experience that you have, having worked in so many different organizations and environments. And that's something that any fractional leader needs to constantly make sure that they're putting out first and foremost, which is the versatility, the flexibility, and the adaptability, and the perspective that you bring, having not just worked within a single organization, actually is a huge asset in today's environment.
Amazing. Good stuff. I know it's Friday and I won't hold you for much longer. I really appreciate your time. Even though it was only 30 minutes, I really benefited from this. You have a new customer, me. I'm going to buy your book for sure for Christmas, and follow you more. I'm intending to follow your podcast and learn whatever I can learn from you, and really appreciate your valuable feedback.
Thanks, Al. I really enjoyed the
Take care.
conversation and look forward to our ongoing collaboration.
Same here. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.